Hey, it's Matt with Shucks and Audio, and today we're going to talk turntable basics. How to find a good one, what makes a good one, and how to find a good deal on a good one. Plus, some bonus talk about distortion. Ooh. Each table has 6 fundamental parts: the platter, motor, plinth, tonearm, cartridge, and phono amp. Each one plays into a turntable's ability to produce clean sound and combat distortion. The platter is the metal disc that typically has a rubber or cloth mat on it where you set your record. They're typically quite heavy in order to combat ringing in the metal or other vibrations, as well as to more easily keep a constant speed with its inertia. The nicer the table, the heavier your platter is likely to be. You may also see a weight like this placed on top of a record to further dampen vibrations and keep the record flat. The motor will either be connected directly to the bottom of the platter, direct drive, or will be situated adjacent to the platter with a belt connecting it, belt drive. DJ turntables are usually direct drive, whereas the highest end audiophile sort of units are usually belt drive to reduce minor vibrations caused by the motor. The plinth is what houses all of the electronics and makes your turntable look nice. Just like the platter, the weight and density of your table's plinth often grows with the quality of the table. DJ turntables like the iconic SL1200 have very heavy metal plinths to dampen the vibes from all of the dancing they were meant to cause. Oftentimes, a great update for an old table is just to make a new plinth out of either hardwood, concrete, or bamboo. Unlike your platter and your plinth, the tonearm's weight is not directly attached to the quality of the table. It does, however, matter a lot. Generally, there are 2 types of arms: straight and curved. Straight arms are usually lighter. Curved arms are typically heavier, but they can be said to track better since it lines up the head with the grooves on the record. Both styles are used on high-end tables with much debate about whether a heavier or a lighter or a straight or a curved arm is better. Straight arms are cheaper to produce, so you may see them on lower-end tables. Just how the difference in weight of your tonearm might affect the sound, it will also affect the performance of your cartridge. The cartridge contains a tiny needle or a stylus that is typically replaceable. The tip of the needle is usually made out of a tiny diamond or other gemstone, which bumps along the grooves in your record, causing the stylus to move. The back end of the stylus is called the cantilever, and it connects into an assembly which holds either a magnet or a coil on the end. The surface of a record is one long groove that has been etched with bumps. When the needle runs over those deviations in the surface, it causes the cantilever to vibrate, which causes the magnet or coil attached to the end to move around, thus creating an electrical signal between them. Moving magnet cartridges are more common and typically produce a louder signal requiring less amplification than a moving coil cartridge. Speaking of amplifying the signal, that's where our 6th element comes into play: the Phono Stage. It's a small amplifier within your amplifier that only amplifies the signal coming in from the phono input on the back. Even the more powerful moving magnet cartridge is only going to put out about 3 to 6 millivolts, whereas a tape deck, cassette deck, or even just your phone turned up to max volume is going to put out around 300 times the voltage at 1 to 2 volts, which is called a line level signal. In order to fit all that sound on this tiny little groove here, the manufacturer has to apply an EQ curve to the music, which makes it not sound that great. So the second responsibility of the Phono Stage is to make the output sound normal again. It's a kind of cool process. If you want to know more about it, you can Google the RIAA curve. Most vintage turntables don't have a Phono Stage built into them, which means you need to plug it into the phono input on the back of a receiver in order for it to work right. Most newer turntables include a Phono Stage with a switch on the back to turn it on or off. So you could plug it into the Phono Stage on your amp if you switch it to the phono option, or you can plug it into any of the other inputs on your amp if you switch it to the line option. So, which turntable should you buy? Well, a good turntable for you needs to meet a few criteria. First of all, is it in your budget? A new table will usually cost more than a vintage one of similar quality, depending on what model you're after. But the vintage one might have peeling vinyl, a scratched or cracked dust cover, a questionable stylus or cartridge, or require a new belt or some other maintenance. Whereas a new one will be plug and play. And of course, buying a vintage table that's been serviced is totally an option, and it'll make it more plug and play. But it'll also make it more expensive because it's been serviced. Secondly, what do you want to do with the turntable? Do you want to get really into it and tweak everything? Or do you want to just casually listen to a few records when you have friends over? Or maybe you want to start DJing. The truth is, the sound differences between each turntable and each cartridge are going to be minimal enough that you're not likely to notice them. If I were you, I'd be thinking more about what sort of table you want. If you like the feeling of dropping the needle onto a record, well, that rules out a fully automatic turntable because it drops the needle for you when you push a button. So that leaves you with a full manual or an auto return table. The auto return table lets you set the needle down, but when the record's over, it stops itself and brings the arm back. Very convenient at parties. Whereas a full manual table is just gonna leave that needle sitting and bouncing on the record until you turn it off. My advice, you can't go wrong with an auto return or fully automatic turntable that pops the arm over for you also. The only real reason you would get a manual turntable is either if you're on a really tight budget, because they're usually the cheapest, or if you have like $20,000, you're not on a tight budget at all, and you really want one of those high-end audiophile type tables. Those are all manual, and they usually have multiple arms. Or if you're a DJ. Other than that, I'd recommend auto return or fully automatic. If you want to get into DJing, let's be real, the best option is a Technics SL1200. They made a few versions of them. You can usually find them anywhere between $300 to $600. And if that's a bit too high, or you're looking for something more modern, Audio-Technica does have a few options in a lower budget range, but the Technics SL1200 is so reliable and it's tried and true. It's just the classic DJ table. But you really just need a direct drive turntable that's pretty heavy so it can dampen those vibrations, and you can always upgrade as you get more into it. And for the people who care about their sound and want to get every ounce of performance out of every record that they lay down, remember earlier how I mentioned distortion? Well, that's kind of a turntable's deal. Whether it's inconsistent speed caused by the motor, wow and flutter, a lightweight platter that rings easily, or vibrations from the motor, or even sound waves from your speakers getting fed back into your cartridge, there's dozens of ways for distortions to occur, and there's dozens of ways to counteract each source. And some of those make fun midnight reading. If that rabbit hole sounds big enough for you, vintage might be your best choice. There's tons of resources out there about upgrading dozens of various different tables. Nearly any Thorens table is going to suit your fancy and have tons of support and upgrade paths. Regardless of your budget or where you're starting from, a couple of my favorite ways to find turntable deals that you might not have considered are first to hit tons of thrift stores. You might find garbage or you might find gold. It's pretty hit or miss, but if you go a couple times a week for a month or two and you're in a major metro area, it's likely that you're gonna find something for a good price. Vintage tables are generally built to last and should last you a couple of decades with the right service and maintenance. The other option is to use eBay, Facebook Marketplace, or Craigslist to find some options near you. Using any of these platforms, one of my favorite ways to find new models of turntables you might not have heard of or just a good deal is to type in turntable or record player and then arrange the search results by the price, going from highest to lowest so that you filter out any parts or other weird stuff, and then find your budget, and then you'll just see all the options in that price range. It's pretty simple. eBay even lets you sort by your zip code. So you can put your zip code in with a radius of 50 miles or whatever, and then do the exact same thing, and you'll see all sorts of different options. Along with my list of recommended turntables in the description, I've also put some brands that you can look out for when you're searching on those platforms. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different models of turntables out there from the 60s, 70s, and 80s when records were the main way people listened to music. But from each brand, there's only a few that actually command high prices. The reason for that is that they kind of can develop a legacy, or maybe it was the highest end turntable back then, so an old timers, they all dreamed of owning that turntable, and so they want to buy that turntable because that's the one they wanted in high school. Or Joe Schmo sat on a forum once in 2008 that this table was way better than anything he's ever used, and so that legacy carried on to some other people, and it's now 2 decades down the line, and everyone thinks that turntable's amazing. But the truth is, there's a lot of mid-level turntables from that era that kick the pants off of most any budget turntable that you can find these days, and you can find them pretty cheap. And if you want a new table, there's lots of great options out there from companies like Rega, Fluance, Pro-ject, however you say that, Technics, Audio-Technica, and others. There's even this brand, Angel's Horn, and you might see them on Amazon. They make kind of budget turntables, and they actually sent me this one for free to test it out and to hear my thoughts. Now, when I got this unit, these knobs wiggled around quite a bit, and it bothered me so much that I fixed it. Just enough space to fit some double-sided tape. and that should give us a really nice, solid knob feel. And look at that. So after I fixed these knobs, I ran into a couple of other issues with this turntable that I couldn't remedy. So I reached out to Angel's Horn and they sent me another turntable. And I just have to say, I really love the box that these come in. It has the table printed, the graphic on the top. It's just a cool box. And one of the first things I noticed about this table is that these knobs don't move, which leads me to believe that the one that they sent me first really was just a lemon. If you do have issues with the tone arm, you can loosen the screws on it, according to a couple other videos I saw. That didn't fix the problem with the first one they sent, but from everything I've read and just from my experience, obviously they did send this to me, they've had great customer service and they obviously want to get you a table that is working. The problem that I experienced was that I couldn't get a consistent weight on the tone arm. If you tapped the table, the weight would change. So if you do have one of these little scales, you can put your tone arm on it and take the weight and see if it stays consistent. And if it does, then you got a great table. Pro tip, I found that the little anti-skate weight that is supposed to hang on this arm and attach to the tone arm is useless. It doesn't actually add to the experience, and the tone arm has enough of its own kind of anti-skate and friction to not cause any problems, and this weight is kind of annoying when it's just hanging off the back. So you can use it if you want, but you really don't need it. Overall, I did find that this table was a really good performer, and it does have a nice little speed adjustment, so if you want to get your speed perfectly dialed in to 33.3 RPMs, you can do that. And yeah, it's just a solid beginner's turntable. You can connect it to some Bluetooth speakers. It has a USB output for connecting it to computers. If you want to digitize albums, that sort of stuff. It's just a great starter table at a decent price. If you do want to buy one, I get a small kickback from it. You can find the link in the description and the pinned comment. I usually make videos about repairing and restoring old stereo equipment. If you have any interest in that, feel free to check them out. Let me know what you think. Once again, this is Matt with Shucks and Audio. Thanks for watching.